Thank you for coming. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Ken Gagne, and I've been a member of the community for so long that I have been to every INIT Hello. It's been a hot minute.
If you've been to everyone, stand up.
I am known for a couple of different things, some of which I'll actually talk about today. Primarily Juiced.GS, which is a quarterly Apple II magazine. You may have seen me at the vendor fair yesterday. This is its 30th year. It's been in publication. It's been around for a while, and that's actually one of the things I want to talk about today. It's the thing I want to talk about today. Memories of the times we spent together is the name of my talk, or also known as Time is a Flat Circle. So I've been thinking a lot lately, just in the past week really, about memories, about all the things that have happened in the Apple II community and in my journey through it. A week ago was my 28th annual Kansas Fest. Many of you were virtually there in attendance. I was very excited to see you there. I'm very excited to be meeting you here if you haven't attended one of these before, or at Kansas Fest. Much to my surprise, Kansas Fest opened Friday night with what they called Classic Rewind, where they played talks from previous Kansas Fest, a history that goes back to the 1980s. And the talk that they started with was the keynote speech from Kansas Fest 1998. Mike Westerfield of the Byteworks was the keynote speaker that year. And I was in the audience. I was attending my very first Kansas Fest. And I actually met a couple of people who are here today. Jeff, you were there, right? And I think that's it. But I was in the audience for the replay of this just a week ago, and unexpectedly, one of the committee members DM'd me and said, Ken, can you come on the stream and talk about your first Kansas Fest and the people that you met there who you're still in touch with? And that got me to thinking about how my life as a digital nomad for the last 6 years, I've been living on the road, traveling full time, has given me the opportunity to see so many people that I used to see only once a year in Kansas City, Missouri. So this is Mike Westerfield. This is 1998. He is 43 years old in that photo. That was the last time he attended Kansas Fest. Nothing traumatic happened. It's just the Apple II community ebbs and flows, and that was his last time attending. So that was the first time I met him, and the next time I saw him was 24 years later, when I was 43 years old. I had stepped into the age that he was in the last time I saw him. So this is me visiting him and his wife Patty, also of the Byteworks, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 3 years ago. After we went out for lunch, turned out we're, at this point in our lives, all vegetarian. None of us were 24 years ago. And we went back to Mike's place, and he started showing me some of his collection, which he has very dutifully archived and cataloged. He has a bunch of different software that he's worked on, like Quick Click Calc, which is a spreadsheet program for the Apple II. He has his invitation to the party that John Romero of IonStorm held in Texas back in, I think, 98 or so. And he has the Apple II.GS that he brought and had signed by pretty much everybody who was there. Some of the signatures on this case include Dan Gorlin, creator of Choplifter, Tom Hall, co-founder of id and designer of Wolf 3D, Bob Bishop, co-founder of Apple's Research and Development Division along with Woz, and Woz himself. So when you talk about a Woz signature 2GS, this is the Woz signature 2GS.
Woz's signature is on there twice.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mike also, again, he had a lot of his own software. He was going through the garage showing me some of what he had, and at one point he pulled out the Apple Programmers and Developers Association collection of software, which he, as the Byteworks, was licensed to sell back in the day. And he's also authorized to sub-license it out. And he said, Ken, you already sell my Opus software that I made back in the 80s and 90s. Do you want to sell this too? I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. There's been no legal way to obtain this software in almost decades. I mean, Syndicom used to have a license, and they're not around anymore. So I said I'd be happy to. So with the help of David Schmidt, who's here, hi Dave, David, and with the help of Jeff Weiss, we were able to put this together and make it available in the store, for the Juiced.GS store, for the first time in ages. And I was so fortunate to bump into Mike and just have him basically throw this at me. Another, what?
Sorry, I just have a question. Is that the Apple II stuff or the Mac stuff as well?
This is the Apple II stuff.
Okay.
Yep. Another person I have gotten to meet or re-meet in my travels. So at my very first Kansas Fest, 1998, the rule was, as we're all staying in the dorms, if the door is wide open, you can just walk in and talk to whoever's in there. If it's closed but ajar, you can knock and then come in. And if it's closed, well, it's closed. So there was one door that was wide open, and I was 19 years old and completely without shame. So I just walked in and said, "Hi, I'm Ken Gagne." And the guy sitting there looked up and said, "Well, hi, Ken, I'm Max Jones." And that was the editor of Juiced.GS, the guy who founded this magazine in 1996. And he knew my name because I was a subscriber to his magazine. And I didn't even know who I was introducing myself to. I was just like, these are my people, and I need to meet all of them. So that was how I met Max. Max edited Juiced.GS for the first 6 years. Then he passed it on to Ryan Suinaga, who brought me on as his associate editor, and we did it together for 4 years. And then Ryan passed it on to me while he was still alive. And that was for volume 11 of Juiced.GS, and now we're in volume 30. So midway through volume 29, which was just last year, I was passing through Terre Haute, Indiana, which is where Max lives. He recently retired as editor-in-chief of the Terre Haute Tribune-Star, the daily paper there, and we went out for lunch. And it was my first opportunity to hand-deliver to him an issue of Juiced.GS. He'd been seeing it in the mail, but to actually hand it to him was something pretty special. We hung out. I showed him my car, which Juiced.GS didn't pay for. I wish it had. That would be great. But if you want to subscribe, talk to me. And since this is Indiana, there's a statue of Larry Bird there, so we took a picture. And I showed this picture to a friend of mine, and they said, "Is that your dad?" And I said, "No, Larry Bird is not my dad." But thanks. He did play for the Boston Celtics, and I'm from Massachusetts, but no relation. And yeah, so Max created this little thing back in 1996 because GS Plus magazine had just gone under. The Apple II had been discontinued. There was less focus and coverage of the Apple II GS specifically. So he created this magazine. He called it Juiced.GS because he had so many add-ons and peripherals for his Apple II GS, that one day somebody came over and said, "Wow, that's a really juiced GS." And he was like, that's a great name for a magazine that's going to last 30 years and burden this kid I've never met before. Like, thanks, Max. So I met Mike Westerfield at my first Kansas Fest. I met Max Jones, and I also met Eric Shepard. Sheppy, as he's known, is still with us today. He's still alive and well, and I just had lunch with him last week. This photo is from last week in Tennessee. He and his wife, Sarah, who met at Kansas Fest and got married and had a kid, who's now in college, which is mind-blowing. Sheppy has done so much for this community. He inherited Syndicom from the people who founded it. He launched the website a2central.com. For 5 years, he was the publisher of Juiced.GS. He's written countless pieces of software, including the excellent emulator Sweet 16 and the Apple II GS version of Wolfenstein 3D, both of which he did with many other people. But it was great to see him for the first time in 2.5 years. The last time I'd seen him was January of 23. I was driving from San Diego to Boston, and I stopped to have lunch with him in Tennessee because I hadn't seen him in like 5 or 6 years, since before the pandemic. And at that time, Tony Diaz had passed away about 1.5 years earlier, and the website a2central.com, which Tony had run, had gone offline. It had 20 years of archives of news, reviews, interviews. It was practically like an online version of Juiced.GS. There was just so much content that was just lost when we lost Tony. I was so excited to see Sheppy 2.5 years ago, and at one point, his phone beeps. And I said, "Oh, is that an alarm? Do you have an appointment?" And he said, "No, that's my reminder to give you a2central.com. And he handed me a thumb drive. And that thumb drive had a backup of a2central.com current to the day it went offline. A2Central was running WordPress, and I guess I'm the Apple II community's WordPress guy. So Sheppy's like, if somebody's going to bring it back online, it's you. And he gave it to me. And that's how we were able to bring the site back online with all the original content, all the links still worked, everything that had ever gone into it in 20 years. And so I met Mike Westerfield, who gave me the Apta software. I met Max Jones, who gave me Juiced.GS. I met Eric Shepard, who gave me A2Central. All these people I met at Kansas Fest 1998, my very first Kansas Fest 28 years ago. Just over the course of the years, I've been very lucky to just have these things given to me. I was the right person in the right place at the right time because I showed up at Kansas Fest 1998. And so I want to distill all this down into a couple of things that I think are really important. And one is the power of IRL experiences of just meeting each other in real life. And nothing that I'm saying discounts the counterparts. The Apple II enthusiast group on Facebook has 31,000 members in it, which is astonishing. It's wonderful. It should be even more than that because the Apple II sold millions. So I'd love to see this number grow. But at the same time, that makes it really hard to have personal interactions with people because the conversations happen so quickly, there are so many faces that come and go, and you only know them by a name which may or may not be real and an avatar that may or may not be real. Whereas there's a concept known as Dunbar's number. It's a cognitive limit of how many relationships you can maintain. Not only people that you know, but how you know each other and how they all interact. And that number is about 150. You can reasonably know 150 people and how they interact with you and how they interact with each other. So on Facebook, I'm not going to be able to keep track of how 30,000 people know each other. But at an event like INIT HELLO or an event like Kansas Fest, this is Kansas Fest 2016, it was reasonable at Kansas Fest 2016, just like it's reasonable this weekend at INIT HELLO, to meet everyone and have a conversation with every single person here and to get to know their name and to hear their voice and to know what they're passionate about and even maybe exchange some ideas. These are the things that happen at these IRL experiences, whether you're driving all the way from California like Forrest did, or you live just down the road in Baltimore or elsewhere in Virginia, and you're able to make it to a INIT HELLO or a Kansas Fest. And if you're lucky, among those 150 people in Dunbar's number, you might be able to find or assemble a small cadre of people who are really passionate about the same things you are, and you can do something amazing. This is the staff photo from Juiced.GS 2008, taken 17 years ago yesterday, to the day. It was just 6 people, 2 of whom are in this room right now, and we're still working on the same things 17 years later because we met each other at an IRL experience and we've identified these common passions with each other. So I love the power of IRL, which again, online is great in many different ways, which are also essential to this community, but it's half of the equation. The other thing I want to remind us all is that history isn't just about what happened in the past. Now, there are a lot of us who are, I'm sorry. I was afraid I had an objection there. No. So there are many people in this community who are scanning documents, cracking and archiving software. And again, that is also essential, and we need that to be happening. But there's another half of the equation too. Back in 2010, I was an editor at Computer World magazine in Framingham, Massachusetts. And for our July issue, I profiled a local historian who did not work for the Internet Archive, but was doing very similar work to the Internet Archive. That person was Jason Scott, and in our interview, it was basically a ride-along of a day in the life of a free-range archivist. One of the things he said to me that made it into the article was, the hardest thing for someone to do with history is to be there when it happens. I'll give you an example. For Lane's next book about Sierra Online, Lane has interviewed more than 50 people who worked at Sierra Online, as you said yesterday, from factory workers all the way up to Ken and Roberta Williams. Now, Ken and Roberta, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, donated their memorabilia to the Strong Museum in Rochester, New York. And among that memorabilia was stuff like the trophies they won and the plaque from Ken Williams' office door, which are really cool artifacts and touchstones of history that tell you nothing about how the company was run or what life was like at Sierra. So that stuff is cool, but it's not really data. It's not informative in a way about history. Now, in the course of researching your book, again, you interviewed so many people, and there was one person who I don't think had really been interviewed before because they didn't have a prominent place in history. And when that person finally got interviewed about Sierra, they said, I knew someday somebody would come for me. And they sat down and they pushed across the table to you a thumb drive and said, here are all my emails from Sierra Online. Now, not everybody at Sierra preserved all of their emails. And if they had, the additive function of doing so might have diminished because the amount of information you get from one person's email is massive. And so my point of all that is, well, the point is that sometimes what we're preserving today, we don't know if it's going to be important or not. And it's not our place to decide that. Now, maybe many of those emails were junk, and every now and then there was a gem. And by the way, I'm sorry for stealing your story. This was told by Lane on a wonderful podcast called Beyond Solitaire. Link will be in the show notes. Right. But when we are doing things today, we don't know who's going to be reading it, who's going to be seeing it, when, or for what purpose. I love that Jason is here recording these talks because it doesn't just mean that, hey, the people who couldn't make the drive here today will be able to stream it on Twitch. It means that 10, 20, 30 years from now, somebody will know what happened here today. You know, the stuff that you're doing here matters. And I have a clip also from Jason, which I love. This encapsulates the significance of active preservation. Hopefully the sound comes out.
99% of archiving is going dun, 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 so that in 1,000 years someone will go dun, dun.
That's archiving in a nutshell, and it's very catchy too. Like, you'll remember that. So what I'm saying is that what we do here today matters. You know, we lionize the historical celebrities, the people who founded Apple and the people who created wizardry, with good cause, because they were geniuses, but often, like me, they were just people who were in the right place at the right time, born to the right family in the right part of the country. And yes, they were geniuses, but they were enabled by the people and the environment around them to do something amazing and to share that with many people. You know, they weren't doing it in a vacuum. They weren't doing it alone. So the things that we do here, this matters too. You know, so save your emails. When you're pushing stuff to GitHub, like, save every version and every issue and every pull request. You know, print out stuff, throw it all in a box. Don't even bother archiving it or cataloging it, because 20 years from now, we'll have software that will sort it all and figure it out for you. You know, just save what you're doing, because you don't realize how important you are, and you may not, unfortunately, have the opportunity to recognize that, because somebody else is going to stumble across what you did and be, oh my God, this guy was a genius in his own time, and he wasn't recognized for it. And the reason that what we do here today matters, there's an underlying corollary to this, a prerequisite. The reason that what we do here today matters is because you matter. You know, we want you here at INIT Hello. You deserve to be here. You deserve to be a part of the Apple II community. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be wanted and appreciated by this community. And if you don't feel that way, and if there's anything I can do about it, come talk to me, because I want to meet you. That's the power of IRL. That's the power of having those conversations. It's understanding who each of us is and why we're here and what we want out of it. And so I encourage you, again, to talk to each other, talk to me, keep track of what you're doing, save it for the future, save the past as it's happening, be there when history happens. Because again, what Mike Westerfield told me the last time I saw him, as we parted ways, he said, Ken, be nice to the next 19-year-old you meet, because 24 years from now, he might be selling your software. So, thank you.